Some needed special medical attention, emergency shelter. There's a big list of stuff. The Salvation Army also worked with them, but through that, I could definitely. I talked to different people. The one guy I talked to, excuse me, he was like, I think, a grandpa, and he was just going through a hard time financially, and he asked for prayer, and that was the first day, and I got to pray over him, and it was really, really touching to just see that, this guy, he seemed like a normal guy, worked his whole life, seemed like had a good attitude, and he just needed prayer and was financially in a bad spot. So it was nice to see that this City Relief, team was there to help and try to take him to the next step. And I think that's kind of what they try to do, is not only share the gospel with them by example and also just by praying and everything, but they also try to get them out of their situation and just let them know that they're not forgotten. And it's crazy. Like there's people that I helped with donating the socks that you got, and there'd be people coming in and be like, "Oh, I don't need any socks," and you could tell they had everything they had on them. And then there was other people that would come and be like, "Oh, I only get 2 pairs." So, I mean, people are people. You're going to get that anywhere you go, and it was kind of neat to be able to help them. As far as reality versus expectations, it was safe. We didn't do a lot of. I mean, it was actually pretty easy. We would get there in the morning. We would have a devotion. And then we would just start preparing soups, and we had hot chocolate, and we had hot coffee, and then for some reason, ice cold water. And it was like in the 20s, 30s, I think sometimes, but it was cold. I don't know if anybody got a drink of water. But so then we did that, and we would head out to the town and we would have a couple, like an hour of setup and then a couple hours of serving, and then that was it. They took us home. And but it's crazy, the emotional part that goes with this trip. It's very taxing, but it's very rewarding. Like when we got back to the Airbnb, like for me, I really didn't feel like going out anywhere. I just had to decompress a little bit, but it was so rewarding being able to experience that and talk with that. And I did get to drink a lot of coffee thanks to Matt. He might have a problem, just saying. So that was my experience. The highlight. I want to talk about the highlight. Highlight of my experience was probably, I can't pick between the two. One was meeting a Haitian guy and being able to talk Creole with him and try to communicate, and that was kind of fun. It kind of brought me back a little bit to when I lived back there. And but the last night, Friday night, I think, that picture there. We had so much fun that night, and we laughed so hard, and we had such a good time, and it was just a great ending to our trip. Vanessa, she was the lady that was responsible for kind of hosting us and taking care of us, and she catered all this food in for us, and we had a choice to either just do whatever we wanted to. We were going to go down to the coffee shop, and by the time we left the table, I think it was 8:30, and so those two are my highlights, and also Hannah thinking that I was a homeless person. I think that was hilarious, but so that was my experience. I'll let the rest explain them.
I won't talk for quite as long. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our first day of outreach and kind of what that looked like. So the first day we were in Chelsea Park, and it was definitely our biggest outreach. I think we served about 300 or more people. And I started in the kitchen just kind of bagging bread, so I wasn't actually able to interact with any of the guests until the second half. But yeah, we were just in the bus. It was actually nice because it was nice and warm in there. And then for the second half, I did drink. So basically, I just handed out hot chocolate and coffee to people. As far as attitude-wise, I would definitely say that the first outreach, they were definitely the friendliest and more thankful. That's just something I noticed. A lot of them were very open to prayer and very appreciative of the work that we were doing. And one guy that I was serving hot chocolate to said that he believes that the sun is shining because we were there and serving and we were doing it out of love. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then I kind of went into the first outreach with a little bit of a negative attitude because it was absolutely freezing. I was so cold. And I kept complaining about how my toes were going to freeze off and how they were so cold. And then I just had to think about these people that don't even have socks or shoes. And I mean, they don't even have a roof out of their head, some of them. And they're sleeping in this weather. And I'm blessed enough to be able to go back to a warm house, take a warm shower, but none of these people have that. And some of them were sleeping on the streets in below freezing weather, and that just really puts in perspective how small our problems are compared to theirs and what they're going through. But the trip wasn't all work. We had a lot of fun. One thing that I thought was very inspiring was that Matt just had so much empathy for these homeless people that he decided to become one. He thought it was a good idea to walk past one of the coffee shops in New Jersey and pretend to be homeless. So he kind of put his hood up and he stumbled past and he kind of looked over in the window at the women that were staring at him for good reason. And yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny that he did that.
Okay, so after we had signed up for the trip, I started having doubts and thoughts running through my head. I mean, first of all, I'm way too busy to take a week off, and this could be dangerous. It's going to get really, really cold. I kept checking the weather, and I'm like, it's going to be cold in New York City. And also, I'm kind of busy. I'm almost too busy to go. And like, how's it going to be to live in an Airbnb for a whole week with people that we barely know? I've never been on a mission trip before. I'm going to be out of my comfort zone. And did I mention that I'm going to be too busy? I have way too much going on. But anyways, as more and more of the team had to cancel, I kept thinking, maybe the whole thing will get canceled and then I don't have to worry about that. But you know, I know now that that was just the devil putting all those thoughts and worries into my mind to try to prevent me from going and serving. I'm so thankful now that God allowed me to go. I had the privilege of serving with my husband and my daughter, and Colin, Matt, and Grace, who I now consider family. I mean, we had so many special times together, praying together, laughing, having serious discussions, and yeah, it was just amazing, the bond that we created. And from the moment that we walked into the base there at City Relief with the staff, we just felt that Holy Spirit feeling and just felt right at home with them. And I loved how every morning we would start out having devotions with the staff, and then we'd spend probably about an hour and a half preparing food and, you know, loading up the bus with the hot chocolate, the soup, and supplies like socks, jackets, hats, toiletries, and, you know, all that. So like Hannah said, the first day of the outreach was at Chelsea Park, and that was probably my favorite. I just loved that area. The people were so grateful. And for the first hour, I was inside the bus, bagging up bread with Hannah, Grace, and Quincy, one of the City Relief staff. And granted, it was kind of a boring job because you weren't out with the people interacting or anything, but it was warm. And by the time we had gotten set up, my toes were so cold I could barely walk. So I was glad to be inside the bus doing a boring job. But then by the second part, I got to be outside and I served coffee. And like, it just struck me the sheer gratitude of everyone just for a simple cup of coffee or hot chocolate or soup. I mean, they were so, so grateful. I lost count of how many people told me that God is so good to them and he's taking care of them. I mean, it just filled me with shame on how much I take for granted. One guy in particular, I remember, he would ask where we came from, and when I said Ohio, he just had a fit. He's like, where is that? How many states are between New York and Ohio? How many hours did it take you to get here? Did you come just for us all that way? And it was just inspiring. It's such a little thing that we did, and it just warmed their hearts so much. It just made me realize how forgotten and rejected a lot of them probably feel. And like how many times I have been like the priest and the Levite that we read about in Luke chapter 10, just walking right past and turning a blind eye to any of those in need. And I just want to be more like the Good Samaritan and notice that, offer my help, be there for people, whether it's a kind word or a smile or food or, whatever they might need, whether it's a neighbor, someone I know really well, someone from church, or a stranger on the street that I've never met before. Then on Thursday, our outreach, we just had hot chocolate and granola bars. And then we did what they referred to as Don't Walk By, which is basically we just walked around with backpacks with supplies, finding people to pray for, offer supplies, see what they need, just hope and prayer for anyone that we might find. And we were warned beforehand that this is the area where we'll probably see more people that are struggling with addictions, and just to stay by our teams for safety. And I was in the first shift of handing out hot chocolate, and my feelings went from being very compassionate to serving someone hot chocolate whose hands were so black and probably frostbitten that he could barely hang on to the cup that I had given him. Just my heart just went out for how cold he probably is, and then I was shocked when I had to go ask Corey, one of the leaders, to break up a fight between two women that were hitting and kicking each other over a pair of socks. One had happened to get 3 pair and the other one only got 2 pairs, and that was not fair to her. Then during our walkthrough, we only saw a few people, and most of them did not want anything from us, not even prayer. But we did come across one lady who was actually on a lunch break from her job, and she agreed to have us pray for her health. And we were praying, and after we were done, a man came up to us and shared an amazing story of how God had rescued him after he had been on the 67th floor of the World Trade Center during 9/11. So for 3 years after that, he couldn't hear or speak. But then one night, while praying to God about it, a miracle occurred. He heard this loud boom, and he got his hearing back. And he ended up going back to college and is now working in the medical field. He says he is a walking, talking testament of God's amazing power, and he will never stop walking the streets and talking about his Jesus. I just thought that was really inspiring. Then we went back and cleaned up the area, and then Harlan, Hannah, Grace, and I parted ways with the rest of the team to spend the afternoon and evening in the city. We enjoyed our time of sightseeing, in spite of seeing some sketchy stuff that we hope to never see again. On Friday, our outreach was set up in front of the Salvation Army on 14th Street. I was in the soup kitchen, again, handing out bread, and there was quite a line, and all of a sudden there was someone right in front of me that looked exactly like our oldest son, Derek. I immediately just teared up, and I wanted to hear his story. I wanted to know why he's here, why he ended up on the streets. I wanted to know if he has a mom somewhere that is maybe praying for him or doesn't know where he's at. My heart just hurt for him. He looked like he was maybe in his 20s. He looked so young, and just the fact that he looked like my son just made my mother heart just hurt for him. But I didn't get a chance to say more than a few words because of the line of people. But I do know in my heart that if I pray for him, God knows exactly who I'm praying for and can intercede. Saturday was our last day, and the outreach was in the Bronx. So that was, we had a lot of guests that were more low-income families, not necessarily homeless, which I said homeless, but I prefer to think of it now as unhoused or friends on the streets, neighbors without doors, or something like that. But yeah, we saw way more families with young children, and that was heartbreaking. Colin and I spent the first part of the outreach inside the van, and we were bagging up bread. The highlight of that day was just having Hannah in my line of vision. She was outside serving hot chocolate with a smile and gracious, kind words to everyone. And that just touched my heart so much, to just be able to watch my daughter serve unselfishly. So it was a bit warmer that day, so we saw a lot of people. There were more people than they often have there, and we actually ran out of bread, and that was heartbreaking too, to have people ask for bread and have to tell them, I'm sorry, we don't have any more. So even though I went to New York with the mindset that I'm going to serve the least of these in Christian spirit, because after all, Jesus teaches us in Matthew 25, what we do to them, we do unto him. I feel like I came back home with way more blessings than I give. It was just such an easy thing for me to do, to go up there and serve, and like anyone can do that. It's so easy, and it just makes such an impact on their lives. It was just a fresh reminder for me to appreciate and love well those that are around me, and just never take for granted every blessing that God has given me. My encouragement would be to anyone that's considering going along next time, and I sure hope there is a next time, to just go ahead and do it. You definitely won't regret it.
All right. Well, I would first of all just like to thank you to the church for letting us go and getting this together. Thank you, Colin, for getting this together, even though you did not, your heart wasn't in it to start with. You did an amazing job, and yeah, bless you for that. And these two next to me were kind of, when they found out we're supposed to be sharing today, they were both digging in their heels, and didn't they do an amazing job? I mean, wow. I guess for me, that was just one of the highlights. There were so many of them, but I just loved to serve with part of my family, my wife and my youngest daughter. That was just a blessing to work alongside of them, and just, yeah, it was just, did something to my heart as a dad to be able to do that. As this being my first mission trip, Hannah had been on some before, but just came back with just, I was tired, just to be honest, but I was rejuvenated, and my heart was just overflowing. And even just sitting here last Sunday and heard Jimmy just preach and just touch my heart, I was just thinking of all these faces that I saw that week. And I hope God never takes away the picture that I got, the faces that I saw, the people who are just a lot less fortunate than us. And some of the stories that they're just endless. I mean, I can't even begin to pick out one. I have some that I want to share with you that are very special to me, but I mean, just, yeah, there's so many. I did also enjoy just that Friday night that we sat around the table just eating and having conversation and laughing. I had to think, Colin said we were just laughing. We were, but we also had moments where we were almost crying. And so just a great, great experience. Just got to know these two and Grace on a deeper level that I never had before. Just Matt, just having this crazy side that I didn't really know about that much, but yeah. And so I love having fun too. I'm a heart guy. I really, love connecting with people and just having a heart for people, but I also love having fun. And so we had a lot of both of those moments. And so just love that. And again, just serving with part of my family, just enjoyed that. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about maybe the first 2 days, just some things that really stuck out to me. I love, and a couple of the others that also shared, they loved the first day, Chelsea Park. And that was probably my favorite day. We had a bigger team that day. We had a team that, a local business, they're very intentional. I think they have like 400 employees. So every Wednesday they committed to sending a team to help out. And so we had a fairly decent sized team there. I think, was there 15 of us total maybe, I think? And so just created this bigger broader spectrum of things that we were able to do that day. And I loved what I was doing that day. I was doing pre-screening, which basically Colin was the guy who followed up with what I was doing. Basically, the pre-screening was it was, you know, they went through the line, they got their soup, they got their bread, they got their socks, their hot chocolate, all those things that they were immediate needs that they needed. But me and Colin were kind of the follow-up people to the deeper needs that they had. And Colin touched on some of those. Some of these people got their IDs stolen. Where do you even start? If you don't have an ID, if you don't have your birth certificate, how do you even identify who you are? Some people, the one lady that I helped that day, she had her Social Security benefits card stolen. So now she had no more benefits and somebody else was using her benefits. So basically what I did, I had this paper that I filled out for them. I filled out my name at the top. I put their name, their address, if they were willing to share that, their phone numbers, any information that I could get. And so any additional needs that they had, I was supposed to list those, write those down. I would send them over to Colin and at his table, and then he would tell them. We had people on site who were helping them with these certain needs that they had, these specific needs. And so that was kind of my job that day. I got to pray with probably, I don't know, maybe 5, maybe 6 people that day. And it was just such a blessing to be able to just pray with them. And I never forget this one lady she was sitting there at the table and she was eating, and I asked her if there were any needs that she has. She didn't really have any extra needs that she needed, but I asked her if there's anything that I could pray with her about. She said yes. And I forget what she told me, but I asked if I could put my hand on her shoulder, and she said yes. Instead, she puts out her hand in front of her, and I just held her hand. I prayed for her, and just after we got done with the prayer, just tears running down her cheeks. Just a small thing that we think, but prayer is so powerful. And you know, I don't know the impact that has on her, but we just plant the seeds. One of the other things that day that just broke my heart was just, I also prayed with a tall black guy, and all he wanted was help with employment. And I prayed with him about that, and the same thing, just, you know, he just thanked me over and over and over again. And so just so blessed by that. But I'll never forget, I hope I'll never forget this one. It was a Mexican lady, and she could not even speak our language. But she came up, and so I had to have an interpreter to talk to her. Asked her what her needs were. Asked if I could pray with her. She said no, she doesn't need prayer. But she needed one specific thing, and it just broke my heart because she had this little, I forget, was it a stroller or what it was? And she had a little 2-year-old boy in that stroller. And it just hit me, like, and all she wanted was just clothes for her and her little boy. And I just put myself in that little boy's life. I was just like, he has no choice where he grew up, where he grows up. He has no choice. And then we wonder why, you know, we go out in the big cities and we see these gangs. I don't know how this little boy is going to end up. I just want to take him home and give him a warm place to sleep and food to eat and a bed to sleep in. You know, then we walk through a city and we see these gangs and we wonder why. It's those children that grew up with a lot less than us. That's where they end up. Because they have this feeling of wanting to be a part of something. And it's just so heartbreaking to think of. I just had to think of that instance right there. And I had to think, why was I blessed enough to be born into, right, what Jimmy said this morning, where I was? Some of these people didn't have a choice. And so that image to me, that little boy, was just so impactful for me that it still shakes my world today to just know there's a little boy out there. I don't know if he's got a bed to sleep in tonight. I don't know if he's got a warm place to sleep tonight, but they're out there. The least of these. Can we just serve the least of these? I would encourage anybody in here that, and sometimes I've had this attitude as well. When I see somebody out on the streets, I'm like, well, they don't care. They're just, why don't they just go get a job? I want to encourage you, before we make that judgment, let's sit down and listen to their stories. It just broke my heart. Every one of those people that I saw that week, they'll have a story. And it's broke my heart that I couldn't just sit down with them personally and just listen to all their stories and listen to, what happened. I had to think of, us today. We all have hurt and pain, but these people have even a deeper, they have current hurt and pain, because on the streets of New York City, they're nobody. They're nobodies. On the streets of Canton, there's people that are nobodies. That's how people look at them. I just encourage you guys, before we judge, before we make that judgment, let's just sit down and talk to them. Let's ask them, can I just listen to you today? So that's my encouragement for you guys, as well as just, if there is another opportunity, I would love to go again. And I just encourage you guys to go. It's such a great experience. I'll share a little bit about the second day, SDR Park, I believe it was. Again, don't walk by. And we walked the park there, and we had somebody with us from the base there. And Matthew was with us, Matthew Schuler, not this Matthew. Another great guy. I just connected with him so much. But we walked to the park, and we got to pray with a guy who was sitting on a park bench, and he just wanted prayer for, I think he was, he smokes marijuana, and he just wanted prayer to be free of that addiction. Pretty low key. We didn't get to interact with a lot of people, but the last guy that really impacted my heart was a guy named Eric. It was right before we got back to the bus. We were just almost done with our walkthrough. And we stopped and talked to this guy, and this guy had rings on every finger of his right hand. And we just started talking to him, and the back part of his hand was like thick, like it was swollen. I don't know what it was from. But Matthew just started talking to him and just asked him if he needed anything. And he said, no, he'd rather have somebody who really needs it more than he does get whatever they need first. Just a very, very caring and selfless guy. But we did finally ask him, well, do you need anything to keep yourself warm? And he said, well, I'll take some hand warmers if you have them. So we gave him a couple packs of hand warmers. And right at the end of that interaction, Matthew Schuler there from City Relief, he just tells them, now, these people that are with me here, they came all the way from Ohio. And I'll never forget this. He just started crying. And the tears just running down his face, and he was wiping his tears. And he said, you guys came all the way from Ohio? We said, yeah. And I said, this is my daughter here with me. And he said, she's beautiful. And I said, yes. And then it just touched me how much this means to them. To me, we're just going and doing this thing, and we're gladly there to go serve them. But it just touched me how much this meant to this guy, that we came all the way from Ohio. And he asked, well, how many hours away is that? And we said, about 7.5 driving time. That's without stopping. And that just really touched me, that how much that meant to him, that we came from Ohio. So I'd encourage you guys. It is such a blessing. I came back with a new fire that I haven't had in a long time. I didn't, realize how stagnant we can get just going about our day to day. And so just, it's so inspiring, so good. If, I went there just thinking, well, I just want to bless these people. I came back more blessed than I believe they are. And so I just encourage you guys to go if you get a chance. So great. The people at City Relief are just so great. And like Colin said, you just felt like we were family. And they're so hospitable. I mean, they make sure you have plenty of food to eat, and they're just great. So never forget this week for the rest of my life. Never forget some of those people that we came in contact with. So thank you again for letting us go.
So what you've heard was just a little bit. I mean, we were there for 5 days, so it was an awesome trip. I'll start in the beginning. I'm pretty spoiled. There's 2 places I don't eat: Denny's and McDonald's. I did not tell these people. One of them knew I did not eat McDonald's, but on the way out, they're getting hungry, and we're like, okay, well, where do we want to eat? I'm like, yeah, Cracker Barrel, Bob Evans. And well, there's a Denny's. And they all agreed Denny's was fine. I was not going to try to figure something else out. So we went into Denny's, and I sat there, and I'm like, wow, I just feel, wow. But we kept going. We got there. We got up to our base, checked into our Airbnb, and we got out to I told these guys to make sure they take most of this morning because I get enough stage time later during the year. So that's why we strategically did this. But we got to base, getting to know these guys, getting to know the people from City Relief was just, it was amazing when you can go to a place that's 7.5 hours away. Matt, I can't think of the other guy's name, but I really connected with Matt Schuler. He sang on, where did he sing? American Idol?
The Voice.
The Voice. So if you want to Google him, he actually was 6th when he tried out. But we connected on a different level. It was, we walked into that building and just like our spirits connected. He was, you can't describe it unless you have somebody that just, he loves God, I love God, and he just prayed for us, and what he prayed was just amazing. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you guys for going along with us. Colin, thank you for getting together. He struggled. He complained. We all complained, and then we got to know each other. One day, Hannah said, Matt, I'm never going to be able to see you the way I used to look at you again. And so I did bring out my funny side, I guess, but I did walk the streets. I thought it was funny to see if people would look at me weird if I would act like I'm homeless. And they do. They kind of look at you, and I thought about going into the coffee shop. They later told me I should have gone into the coffee shop and just bought all of them around a coffee or something just to see what they do, but I didn't think of that. But it was a fun time. The one I want to read this. This was at the Salvation Army. You might be out of here a little late, but it'd be all right. But this was on the wall of the Salvation Army. I'm not sure if I sent the picture of it to Brennan or not, but it was engraved in stone, and it says, while women weep as they do now, I'll fight. While men go to prison in and out as they do now, I'll fight. While there is a drunkard left, while there is a poor girl lost upon the streets, while there remains one dark soul without the light of God, I'll fight. I'll fight to the very end. And then it was signed General William Booth. Brennan, you can bring your team up. Do we fight? Are we willing to fight for the ones that are less fortunate? Are we willing to fight? Are we willing to do what we can? None of us can do everything, but all of us can do something. was very eye-opening just to see Colin was going through something in his life, and he left. And sometimes we make light of things that we shouldn't. Things are actually serious in other people's lives. Let's not try to make them feel better. Let's stand in the gap for them. That was something I really got to know Colin in a different way. He showed me that we don't have to make the other person try to feel better. We can be there for them. We can pray for them. And we can just love on them. I'll pray, and then you guys can all stand. Thank you guys again for sharing, women especially, Hannah and Amanda, even though you didn't want to. But let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to serve you. Lord, help us look at the people in this world in a way that you would look at them. Help us to see them, that you created them in the same image you created us. Be with us as we go throughout our week. May we see you in everything that we look at. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.